The moment the spit hit my cheek, the 30 years I spent raising him evaporated. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe. My name is Rebecca, and I'm going to tell you how a single disrespectful act at a dinner table ended my relationship with my son forever. David and his wife, Sarah, had been living in my home for 3 years. They moved in, temporarily, to save for their own place. But somehow, my 4-bedroom house became their permanent kingdom. I cooked. I cleaned. I stayed out of their way. That evening, I had spent hours preparing dinner, slow roasting a pork dish using a special dark molasses from Ngayon that I kept in the pantry. Sarah sat down, took one look at the plate, and pushed it away. "We need to talk about the basement, Rebecca," Sarah began, not even tasting the food. "My online coaching business is growing. I need your bedroom on the main floor for my studio. You can move downstairs." The basement was unfinished, damp, cold, and entirely unsuited for a 65-year-old widow. I set my fork down, keeping my voice even. "No, I am not moving into an unfinished basement in my own home." David slammed his fist on the table. "Mom, stop being so selfish. Sarah needs the space. We're the ones keeping this household alive." "You pay no rent," I countered quietly. "You drive the SUV I bought. I pay the groceries, the utilities, the Wi-Fi you use for your business." David stood up, his face flushed with an ugly, dark rage. He leaned across the dining table, right over the meal I had prepared for him, and he spat in my face. The droplet slid down my cheek. The dining room fell completely silent. Sarah gasped, but she didn't correct him. David just glared, breathing heavily, waiting for me to scream or cry. I didn't do either. I picked up my napkin, wiped my cheek, and stood up. I knew exactly what tomorrow would bring. I walked into my bedroom and locked the door. I didn't wash my face immediately. I needed to feel the absolute disgust of that moment to burn away any lingering maternal hesitation. Then, I scrubbed my face clean. There were no tears. When you are pushed past a certain point, sadness gets replaced by a very clear, cold sense of purpose. I pulled my suitcase from the top of the closet. I didn't pack everything, just the essentials. Clothes, my jewelry, the heavy envelopes of cash I kept in my safe, and the deed to the house. The house my late husband and I had bought 30 years ago. The one fully paid off, solely in my name. Through the floorboards, I could hear them laughing. They were watching television in the living room, completely unbothered by what had just happened. David truly believed there would be no consequences. He believed my love was a permanent safety net that he could trample on without it breaking. I sat on the edge of my bed with my Samsung S23 Ultra, opening my banking app. We had a joint account, a convenience set up years ago, so David could run errands for me if I ever got sick. Over the last 3 years, it had morphed into his personal slush fund. I looked at the balance. $42,000. All my savings, mingled with his tiny, irregular deposits. With a few taps on the screen, I transferred $40,000 into my private, individual account. I left him exactly what he had put in this month, $200. I didn't feel guilty. I felt like a homeowner cleaning out a severe pest infestation. By 3 a.m., my suitcase was packed, my documents were secured, and the financial cord was cut. I lay back on the pillows, waiting for the sun. Tomorrow, my son was going to learn how gravity works. I woke up at 6 a.m. The house was quiet. David and Sarah never woke up before 9 on a Saturday. Before leaving, I walked out to my backyard one last time. I loved this garden. I had spent years cultivating the climbing vines and the ladybank's roses along the wooden fence. Just yesterday, I had mixed fresh pumice stone and bark into the soil for the tropical hydrangeas. Leaving them behind stung. But staying in a house where I was treated like garbage would have been fatal to my spirit. I walked back inside, grabbed my suitcase, and walked quietly to the garage. There sat the 2022 SUV. David treated it like his pride and joy. But the title and registration were locked in my purse, bearing only my name. I tossed my bag into the trunk and slid into the driver's seat. Before starting the engine, I opened my phone again. I logged into the utility provider portals. Electricity shutoff requested for Monday. Water shutoff requested. Internet canceled immediately. Next, the family phone plan. I was the primary account holder. I tapped the screen, suspending David and Sarah's lines. No service. I started the car and backed out of the driveway. I didn't leave a dramatic letter. I didn't leave a note at all. People who spit on you do not deserve an explanation. They only deserve the consequences of their actions. The sun was just starting to peek over the neighborhood as I drove away. The first domino was about to fall at exactly 9 a.m., right when Sarah usually woke up and reached for her phone to check her social media. I drove straight to a diner across town, sliding into a quiet corner booth. I ordered black coffee and eggs, sitting alone in the comforting hum of the morning rush. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't rushing to make someone else's breakfast or tiptoeing around my own kitchen. While waiting for my food, I opened my banking app one last time to double-check my handiwork. The joint account still sat at a pathetic $200. The utility portals confirmed the shutoff requests were locked in. The financial umbilical cord was officially severed. At exactly 8:30 a.m., I made a phone call to a local We Buy Houses Cash investor. I had met with the man, a polite, no-nonsense guy named Greg, a month ago when I first started feeling suffocated by Sarah's demands. I just wanted to see what the property was worth back then, keeping it in my back pocket as a quiet exit strategy. I hadn't committed then. I was committing now. We met at his small office at 10 a.m. Greg poured me a cup of water and sat across from his heavy oak desk. "You ready to move forward, Rebecca?" Greg asked, pulling out the straightforward purchase agreement. "You seemed a bit hesitant last month." "I'm ready," I replied, my voice perfectly steady. "As is condition. Quickest closing possible. I want the cash, and I want my name off that property by next week." Because the house was entirely in my name and had absolutely no mortgage, the process was incredibly simple. No real estate agents taking a percentage, no staging the house for picky buyers, and no waiting for bank loan approvals. Just a willing seller and a cash buyer making a direct, practical transaction. We agreed on a price slightly below market value. To me, losing a little equity was simply the necessary cost of my immediate freedom. I read through the contract, picked up the pen, and signed my name on the bottom line. It felt remarkably easy. Greg countersigned and handed me a certified check for the earnest money deposit, sliding it across the desk. "I'll need to do a final walkthrough with my contractor on Tuesday to assess the basement," Greg noted, filing the paperwork into a folder. "The spare keys are yours," I said, dropping my set directly onto his desk. "There are currently 2 occupants in the house, but the property is sold exactly as it stands. I will inform them they need to vacate immediately." I walked out of that office and into the bright, late morning sun, feeling a massive, physical weight lift from my shoulders. The house was gone. The anchor tying me to my son's endless entitlement had been permanently cut. I slipped the certified check into my purse and checked my blank phone screen. My son was probably awake by now, existing in a house that legally belonged to a stranger, trying to use a cell network that no longer existed. I checked into a comfortable extended-stay hotel on the outskirts of town, laid my suitcase on the bed, and finally allowed myself to relax. I didn't have to imagine what was happening back at the house. I knew my son's routines too well. Around 9:30 a.m., Sarah would have tried to load her coaching stream, only to find the Wi-Fi router flashing red. David would have tried to call the provider, discovering his phone had 0 bars and a not registered on network error. Then, the panic would set in. David would have gone to the garage to drive to the carrier store, only to find the empty space where the SUV usually sat. I could almost picture him running back inside, grabbing his laptop, and using a neighbor's unsecured Wi-Fi to check the bank accounts. He would log in, expecting to see the $42,000 safety net. He would see $200. For 3 years, David and Sarah had built their entire identity, their lifestyle, and their arrogant confidence on a foundation that I owned. They thought the floor beneath them was made of concrete. They didn't realize it was just me, holding it up with both hands. At 1 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mom!" David's voice was frantic, breathless. "Mom, where are you? Where's the car? Why isn't my phone working? Did we get hacked?" He didn't even remember the dinner. The disrespect was so natural to him that it hadn't even registered as an event. "You didn't get hacked." "David," I answered, my voice steady and calm. "Then what is going on? The joint account is empty. My card declined at the grocery store. You need to fix this right now." The entitlement in his tone was staggering. Even now, he was giving orders. "There is nothing to fix," I said. "The money in that account was mine. The car is mine. The phone plan is mine. I simply took back what belonged to me." "Are you crazy?" he shouted, the panic bleeding into anger. "Because of last night, you're doing this because we asked you to move downstairs." "No," I corrected him. "I am doing this because you spat in my face. You treated me like an animal in the home I paid for." Silence hung on the line. The reality of his actions was finally catching up to his bank balance. "Mom, look, I was stressed. I'm sorry." "Okay, just come back. Bring the car. Sarah needs to get to her appointment." "I'm not coming back." "David." "What do you mean you're not coming back? It's your house." "Not anymore," I said smoothly. "I signed a cash sale agreement this morning. The new owner is doing a walkthrough on Tuesday. You and Sarah have until Friday to remove your belongings, or the investor's clean-out crew will do it for you." I hung up the phone and blocked the unknown number. David thought he controlled the game, but he never realized he was playing on my board. I spent the afternoon at a local nursery, browsing plants. I bought a small potted hydrangea, just to have something green in my hotel room. It felt good to spend my own money on myself. Back at the house, I knew the chaos must be deafening. Without my car, they were stranded in the suburbs. Without my money, they couldn't hire a moving company. Without the internet, Sarah couldn't run her precious online business. They had spent 3 years acting superior, looking down on me for being old and quiet. Sarah used to make passive-aggressive comments about my cooking or how my gardening tools cluttered the yard. Now, those tools were the least of her worries. I didn't feel a drop of pity. Empathy is a beautiful thing, but giving it to people who abuse you is just self-harm. Later that evening, I opened my banking app again. I saw a pending charge attempt for $150 at a high-end restaurant on the joint debit card David still held. It was declined. Of course. He actually tried to go out to eat while facing homelessness. That notification told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't reflecting on his behavior. He was just trying to maintain his illusion. But illusions don't pay for dinner. I ordered room service, enjoyed a hot meal in total silence, and went to sleep feeling perfectly secure. The next morning, exactly 24 hours after I walked out of my house, I was sitting by the hotel window, drinking tea. I had spent the morning researching small cottages in a different town, closer to the coast. A fresh start. At 11 a.m., my Samsung phone buzzed. A text message from Sarah, sent from an email address using the hotel's Wi-Fi network. Rebecca, we are at the front desk. They won't tell us your room number. Please come down. We need to talk. They had found me, probably by tracking the SUV's GPS through the manufacturer's app, something I hadn't bothered to disable. I didn't rush. I finished my tea, smoothed my blouse, and took the elevator down to the lobby. There they were. David looked exhausted, his hair unkempt, wearing the same shirt from yesterday. Sarah stood next to him, her usual arrogant posture replaced by a nervous, twitchy energy. When David saw me, he practically ran across the lobby. Mom. He stopped a few feet away, looking at the keys dangling from my hand. Please. You've made your point. You terrified us. Now please, let's just go home. I am home, I said, gesturing to the hotel, and you don't have one anymore. You can't do this. Sarah stepped forward, her voice shrill, drawing looks from the hotel receptionist. We have nowhere to go. We don't have first and last month's rent for an apartment. Then you better start packing quickly and find a cheap motel, I replied. David's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, this time. The panic had completely broken through his pride. Mom, I spat on you. It was disgusting. I am so sorry. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. We'll pay rent. Just cancel the sale. Please, I'm begging you. He dropped to his knees right there in the hotel lobby, my 32-year-old son, begging on the carpet because the ATM had finally closed. I looked down at him. Years ago, this would have broken my heart. I would have reached out, pulled him up, and forgiven him. I would have sacrificed my peace for his comfort. Get up, David, I said softly. You're embarrassing yourself. He looked up, hopeful. You'll cancel it. No. The papers are signed. The money is transferred. I am not your mother anymore. I am just the woman you assaulted at dinner. I turned around and walked back to the elevator. I didn't look back when the doors closed, even as I heard Sarah shouting his name. I owed them nothing. The debt had been paid in full. 2 months later, the sale of the house closed without a single hitch, but the move-out wasn't quite as graceful. Greg, the cash investor, called me a few days before the final closing date. He had stopped by the property and caught David and Sarah trying to load my custom stainless steel refrigerator and the new washer-dryer set into a borrowed pickup truck. Greg calmly informed them that all major appliances were included in the ASA's sale contract. If they drove off with them, he would consider it theft from his property. They had to unload everything right there in the driveway. Without my money to hire professional movers or buy proper supplies, they ended up shoving most of their designer clothes into black, heavy-duty garbage bags. They didn't give up easily, though. Last week, my sister called me. David had reached out to her, playing the victim, asking if she could talk some sense into me. He actually wanted to know when I was going to send him his half of the house sale money. He argued that since he lived there for 3 years, he had built equity. I didn't get angry. I didn't even call him. I just gave my sister a simple message to pass along: market rent for that house was $1,500 a month. For 3 years, that is $54,000, plus the groceries, utilities, and car insurance. Consider my keeping the sale money as us finally being even. He hasn't bothered any family members since. Through the grapevine, I heard they are now renting a cramped, noisy, one-bedroom apartment right above a 24-hour laundromat in a rougher part of town. Sarah's online coaching business completely collapsed once she lost access to my free high-speed internet and quiet space, so she had to take a minimum-wage retail job. David is pulling double shifts at a local distribution center just to cover their basic grocery bills. They learned the hard way that when you bite the hand that feeds you, you eventually starve. As for me, I bought a beautiful little cottage 3 towns over, right near the coast. I paid in cash. The deed is locked securely in my new safe, and my spare key is hidden where only I know. I spent my first weekend buying entirely new furniture. I made sure not to bring a single chair or plate that reminded me of that dining room table. This morning, I spent 3 hours outside in the sun. I laid down fresh bark and planted a new row of tropical hydrangeas. The soil here is incredibly rich, and the climbing vines are already taking firm hold of the new trellises I built. I live alone, but I am never lonely. I manage my own finances, cook my own meals, and sleep soundly through the night without a single heavy footstep waking me up. Sometimes, people ask me if I miss my son. I tell them the simple truth. I miss the sweet boy he was when he was 10 years old. I do not miss the entitled man he chose to become. If you're watching this and you're letting someone disrespect you in your own home, remember this: you do not need their permission to protect your peace. You hold the keys to your own life. Turn the lock, walk away, and plant your garden somewhere else. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to drop a comment, like, and subscribe for more.